Hello, this is Deborah Anderson, the Black Woman Animator, coming back to you with another video. And this video is with 2D animator Chaz Bottoms. And I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, list all your impressive things, impress the people, impress the people. Don't be humble.
Thank you, Deborah. It's great to be back. Black Animate, super great platform. Really love the work you've been doing. Hi everyone, I'm Chaz Bottoms. I'm a 2D animation director, animator, writer, sometimes producer, and also owner of CBA Studios, which is a boutique production company. We specialize in music video and full service animation production for narrative series. Currently, we are working on Steve Harvey stories, and we've done work for John Legend and Lil Nas X as well. In addition to providing animation services, we're also an in-house studio that develops and creates original IP as well.
Nice. So let's get started. What was your childhood journey with art and animation?
Yeah, animation was one of those things that as a kid, I loved cartoons growing up. And I also really loved storytelling, like reading and just different types of stories and books and comics. And so it was around age 8, I think, that it actually all kind of occurred to me like, oh, animation, like that's like a industry. It's like a career, it's a profession that someone can basically do for a living. And I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, so I wasn't quite really exposed to all that. But I loved movies and specifically like DVDs and VHSs, and they would have the little behind the scenes featurettes that would be really inspiring to me because it was like the glimpse into, how the sausage gets made. And so growing up, YouTube was fairly new. And so I just kind of started teaching myself animation programs, Toon Boom Harmony. I was making shorts basically in like Windows Paint and really just kind of exploring growing up self-taught. And, always kind of knew that I wanted to be in the animation field and be a visual storyteller.
So, as a self-taught artist, I guess, did you refine your skill set in college or?
Yeah, absolutely. So, that led me to go study animation at DePaul University in Chicago. And they had a really great program because they essentially taught you while, you could have your specialization. They basically taught you everything, every part of the process from storyboarding to character design, 2D animation, 3D. And so it was a really great kind of overview of refining those like skills with like software and just actually then applying them to projects and having to turn it in. And so doing all those reps, I think definitely helped, and just being surrounded by a community and a class of animators who are, you're all together basically.
So in being exposed to, all the different types of animation, what is it about the love for 2D animation that you have?
Yeah, I think, growing up in the late 90s, just kind of having that exposure to the Disney Renaissance, kind of being in the middle of that, definitely loved movies like The Lion King and Aladdin and Tarzan growing up. And then also on the small screen with TV, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, their shows were really popular at the time. In addition to just being a fan of like adult animation, which is typically 2D. And so I think, I just kind of gravitated towards that. And I also have a love for drawing too, figure drawing, kind of all that shorthand doodling. And so I actually really enjoy the feeling of like putting pen to paper.
Yeah. How would you describe your animation style?
My animation style, it's funny because it's such a I feel like it's a combination of like several different things, like with anybody's style. I was really influenced again by, I think, early 2000s, late 90s TV animation. That's probably what my diet consisted most of, just on the day-to-day. And so I think you see a lot of like Powerpuff Girls and like Dexter's Lab, and with Nickelodeon, like Fairly Odd Parents, kind of in there. And then it even kind of goes back to I also loved Hanna-Barbera growing up and like the channel Boomerang. And so you can look at like Flintstones, Jetsons, Scooby-Doo. It's all kind of a mixture of that. And also the Proud Family too, I think was a huge influence on me just because it was the first time I actually saw like different Black people, different shapes, sizes, skin tones, kind of in a consistent style. And so that was really kind of the first time I had seen something like that. And so I was like, ooh, if I can kind of do that, but with my own style and implement all those other influences, that's kind of, you know, what you get with like a Batu.
Yeah. What are some important skills other than drawing that people who are interested in 2D animation should learn?
Oh man, that's a great question, because I think there's so many 2D animation right now is in this interesting space where I think it's being embraced more using digital tools and software. And so I think you look at you know, a lot of how animation's produced now, it's typically most of it still might be hand drawn, but now it's on a Cintiq instead of you know, pen and paper and shooting it on film. And so I think like just kind of having that ability to be open to learning, you know, a software, not saying you have to learn everything, but if you just kind of focus your time in on watching like tutorials or just finding resources to better those software skills, I think it'll make it easier for you to actually focus on the animation process and the creative side of things, as opposed to you kind of fighting with software. Once you get comfortable in a software, I think that's when, you know, you can really start to explore and develop as an artist.
Mm-hmm. What do you want to communicate through your animated shorts that you've created? The ones you're working on, the ones you want to produce in the future? What is a theme throughout all of them?
Yeah, you know, I think for me, I want to really see characters that look like me, my friends, and my family on screen, and they're still, you know, a pretty big gap from us getting there. And so for me, I always want to try to tell authentic Black stories, and really just try to get that representation on screen because, yeah, I mean, you really kind of don't see it.
Right. What has been your path from graduating only, was it 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
To being a full-time freelancer? What strategies have you used to stand out to make this possible?
Oh yeah, like, so it's been very interesting because even though I've been out of school for only 3 years, I actually started freelancing kind of by accident, still in school, in between my junior and going into my senior year. You know, I'm a big fan of music, and so yeah, a lot of my friends tend to be musicians as well, and so at first all kind of started with, you know, a good friend of mine, Lorene Chia, want a music video for me and actually paying me for it. And that was kind of one of the first times I'd been like paid for doing animation work kind of outside of like schoolwork and stuff. And so I was just like, oh, wow, yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, that kind of started me building that portfolio very early on. And so when it came time to graduate, I had already kind of had like a few projects I had done that I think, you know, I was really proud of and that were impressive enough to kind of keep building. And I always just kind of would let people know like, hey, if you know of anyone else who's looking for like an animator or any type of animated content, let me know. And so that kind of led to, you know, my first year out in LA, I was doing kind of everything, right? Like motion graphic stuff, like text animations, like some music videos here and there, but basically like, you know, anything animated, I was kind of doing at the time. And even though it wasn't necessarily the stuff I wanted to do, you know, it was important for, I think, me just building that kind of client base and getting those reps in of completing projects and doing, you know, a variety of things. And that's where also coming, you know, from DePaul, where they kind of taught generalist skills, it really came in handy because I was able to work just different software, primarily like some of the Adobe suite, but also like Toon Boom Harmony, and really being able to kind of flex what I could do creatively to kind of make some projects that might not have been as exciting as some others, you know, try to figure out how to put my own little flair into it while still, you know, being under, you know, the vision of the client.
Yeah, so like you said, you've got an opportunity to work on projects with some big names, Steve Harvey, John Legend, Lil Nas X, and more. How did you get these opportunities?
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting because I think I really was able to kind of leverage social media to kind of just get my work out there in the ways that you know, people were aware of my work and just kind of the type of work I was doing. And kind of what helped with that was kind of doing music videos. You start to meet different A&Rs and different producers, and not just musical artists, but you actually start to meet some of the business people on the side of things. And so, you know, with a portfolio like the one I had, I guess it was good enough to where people were able to see kind of that 90s style animation and be like, I want that, you know, like, and, you know, really just kind of, you know, it's all about kind of building that portfolio, but also having just kind of the communication skills and the business skills on the back end as well to be able to leverage projects to where, you know, one project is you're getting paid, but there's also that exposure to getting another project basically, and you're able to kind of build off one another and build on those relationships. And so I was really lucky in that I was able to kind of find my way from working with independent artists into more of the Columbia space and more of the kind of bigger record label spaces. And, you know, it's all just about keep grinding and growing in that regards. But I know a lot of it is, you know, social media, using hashtags, participating in challenges, and also just, you know, I've befriended several other animator music video people. So, you know, just recognizing that that community was larger than myself, and just, you know, not being shy about collaborating with other artists and just letting people know that, you know, whenever I was available for work, I was available for work, and I had the portfolio and kind of real and communication skills to be able to just kind of leverage all that to, you know, build to where you you work with a little Nas X or a John Legend.
It being in, you know, various Facebook groups, you see regular people try to work with animators and get projects done. Is there anything you can say about the reasons why animation is so expensive and why you can't expect to pay someone $500 for a 30-minute project?
Let me tell you, the amount of like $500 like music videos I did kind of starting out, it's, you know, and like, it's still, you know, that's a good amount of money, but, you know, compared to industry rates, that's still kind of less than what a weekly animator makes if they're part of the guild. And so I think, you know, a lot of people kind of don't recognize that animation is more expensive than live action. I think there might be an error in thinking of that, like it's cheaper to draw something than it is to go out and shoot something, which is not the case. And I think it's because people don't realize just how many people it takes to make like an animated project, any animated project. You know, if you actually like stay and look at like the end credits of like Into the Spider-Verse, you know, it's like 8 minutes long of just like animators, artists, character people who are all working together to bring, you know, Miles and his friends to life. And so I think with that, you know, you have to recognize that it's also, it's not as simple as like pressing a button and then a computer spitting out a cartoon. You know, there's a lot of creative decisions and creative conversations and problem solving that goes into every single decision. You know, everything in animation, because you have to draw it from scratch, there's intention behind just about everything that you see. And so I don't think people realize that oftentimes it's, you know, the minds of like producers, writers, directors collaborating with talented artists, modelers, storyboard artists, and designers to bring that one character, that one project to life. And so, you obviously then comes the quality aspect of it. So you want to try to have the best people to, bring that to life. And so the better the person are, the more expensive they typically are as well. And so, it's oftentimes it's like that. There's like a GIF of like, where it's like, it's a graph of like quality, time, and like money. And it's like, you can only have 2 out of the 3 kind of depending on most projects. And so, that's another part where, that kind of sacrifice and collaboration comes in and so handy, is because sometimes you have to make the most with very limited budgets. And, sometimes you will have to take that hit, but only do it if the opportunity is right. That's kind of the advice I always give, is not everything can always be about the money. And that's where kind of coming in, leveraging projects and stuff becomes really important, because it can lead to future opportunities that are well worth the wait.
And, different people, different animators trying to do their own thing, whether it be freelance or trying to start their own studios. What are some tips you can give to them of things they might not think of when they first get into it, to make sure they make it more sustainable, and the collaboration piece of having good communication with people?
Yeah, absolutely. So animation takes a long time to make. It can be made fast, but typically it's you have to have patience in our industry. And so with building a studio, you kind of have to have that big picture, kind of long-term plan or goal or direction you want to take a studio in, because I think you look at studios and they kind of have their distinct style and the distinct type of projects. Like you'll be able to tell, like, oh, this is a difference between like a Disney movie and like a DreamWorks movie. And so each studio kind of has its own iconic kind of storytelling style and character design. And so that takes a long time to kind of figure out. And so when starting out with the studio, kind of think about what specific projects it is you'd want to work on, and kind of what spaces you'd like to be in, whether it be children's or adults, or music videos, or like more in the web series space. Like, where do you kind of want your content to be in life that you produce? And so, and that kind of ties in then to being able to find artists who are then able to execute that vision for you, and that you'll be able to work with. And so, like for me, I'm always like following new artists, people who I see pop up on my timeline, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, like just, again, leveraging social media to find just so many different artists from around the world and in the States. And so it's been really cool to, be able to just kind of reach out and say, hey, I love your work. Like, let me know whenever you're available to hire, or, just even reaching out to artists whose work you admire and developing relationships or friendships, whether it be online or you're able to actually hop on Zoom and like chat. I think all that's important, because again, it's like any industry, it's who you know, and you're able to, I think the more artists you're able to meet and grow with, the better that becomes, because if you're freelancing, artists are then able to kind of hire each other and have their kind of own network and own community of, so where if, like for the Little Nas X video, for example, we had 3.5 days to make that video, that wouldn't be possible with just one, not even two, not even three people. So we needed a team of 4. And, that was barely just enough. And so just kind of being able to know how to kind of navigate and approach individuals with projects, and, having the details of the timeline, turn time, the budget, of all that stuff, super important. Just be able to be clear and direct with your communication.
Mm-hmm. So what have been your favorite projects that you've worked on, whether that be professional or personal projects?
Yeah, the Panini video is definitely a great experience, because that was just really a flex in, like, all right, like how dope can we make something in this like very limited like time frame, and also just being able to wear kind of different hats and work with Little Nas X and his team. It was a really great experience. But I'd also have to say the project that we're working on right now is definitely the thing that I think when it comes out, I'm going to be the most proud of, and that's Batu, an animated musical, which is going to be CBA's first kind of original IP that we're going to try to launch from the production company. And it's a 15-minute original hip hop animated musical set in Chicago. And we've been working on it probably for almost a year now. And we're getting close to the finish line with animation. And it's been such a great journey because it's one of the bigger crews that I've worked with, and everyone's just so talented and fantastic. From the music, from the cast to the animators to our producers, and I'm just really excited for that to be done and for it to come out because I think a lot of people will really like it.
I'm excited about it too. So just to shift gears a little bit, you have had an experience with having an illness. So can you talk about your what was your experience being diagnosed with cancer so young, and how has it changed your outlook on life?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, because that was actually you know, a very, I think, pivotal moment in my life. So just to give a little backstory, it was, 2013, fall of 2013. And I had been in school for 1 week.
Wow.
And I was part of the reason why I went to DePaul was I also got a track scholarship to run there. And so I was on the track and field team there, and you know, they require you to go get physicals and stuff, and so they kind of noticed that I needed a little bit more kind of work and some different tests run, and so they found out that I was in, you know, basically the very early stages of testicular cancer, which was like the craziest thing to hear as like an 18-year-old like kid who just like moved you know, from Cleveland to Chicago. And so you know, it was something that actually happened very fast. I think, you know, from the moment I was diagnosed to when I was in surgery was only about 5 or 6 days. So, you know, they definitely wanted to move quick because it was still so early, you know, in the process that it was like, you know, we might be able to nix chemotherapy. And so that's the one thing that I really kind of didn't want to have to do because, you know, again, I was just there for a week. I'm like, man, I'm here to run track. Like, I want to just run. Like, this is crazy. What's going on? But, you know, it also felt very, like, surreal at the same time, too, because it was just such a new environment. And this kind of big, crazy thing just kind of happened. And so I was super lucky in that my family was able to, like, drive down and be there with me for my surgery. And so it went really well. And then a week kind of later, I went back and I got tested, and it was all gone. And so it was a really kind of amazing, like 2 weeks to kind of just go through that whole experience. And basically, you know, all then it became was me just having to kind of sit out for 6 weeks and heal up from the surgery. And so, you know, it was a crazy experience because I think even now as I say it, it's like I still don't quite know like what I got from that experience, like specifically, but I do kind of know that you know, I was able to actually come back and like compete like my entire freshman year. I didn't have to sit out, miss any time. Basically, I just missed a bit of preseason. And so I think like my like determination and focus in kind of during those 6 weeks, like I couldn't run. I had to like wait to get a doctor's note. So I would like go to practice, watch what they would do, and then probably a week or two after my surgery, I'd go back to the track and then do the workout by myself. And so I think, you know, having that focus and that kind of tenacious energy to, still compete and still want to achieve goals. I think that's something that it's definitely helped in like freelancing. And, when stuff gets hard, just kind of having that experience of being like, oh, like I was able to beat cancer and still have a really successful freshman year and like, eventually college career. I can make these cartoons in 2-3 days. And so, I think a lot of it was just kind of maturing and realizing that, you really kind of have to live life to the fullest. And if you have a dream, you kind of have to go after it because, you never know how suddenly things can just kind of shift and change. And so, I just try to make the most of every day and, keep that same kind of focus and determination on making cartoons and getting representation up on the screen. And I mean, that's pretty much all you can do.
Yeah. So speaking of, your focus and determination, you have extensive experience in crowdfunding projects, from raising money for your Born, Libra, and Nightmare in Cincinnati films to Batu. What do people get wrong when trying to create crowdfunding projects?
Yeah, I think again, there might be this misinterpretation that you create a crowdfunding project, you click go live, and then it's just going to get funded. Like there's people out there who will just be like, oh, let me just start throwing money at things. But what I learned very early on was like how important strategy and planning is in doing crowdfunding. And so like Kickstarter is great because they're one of the few, I think, crowdfunding sources where you can actually like preview a project before you even go live. I've never done that, but it's still like, having kind of a plan or some sort of build up to, letting people know you're about to do crowdfunding, and kind of getting, as much advice and tips that you can beforehand. And also like for me, just studying successful Kickstarters and like Indiegogos versus ones that weren't successful. And so you start to see kind of the patterns in what works and what doesn't work. And also, I think, at the end of the day, it has to be a project that speaks to people. Kickstarter, you also see like products and stuff. That's more practical stuff. But with whether it be music or animation or film, typically people want to back projects that, they feel connected to or they really also believe in as much as you do. And so that's kind of your job then, is to convey, the story behind the story almost, right? Like, there's the project Batu, right? It's about two kids auditioning for a Hipley summer dance troupe. But there's also this great story in me having lived in Chicago and me incorporating all these different Chicago voices and artists, and the dance form originated in Chicago. And so you start to kind of build up that story behind the story. And I think that's something that really speaks out to people and gets them excited and amped up and hyped to share it.
Yeah. So what would you say are your top tips for crowdfunding your project?
Yeah, I would say, definitely do something that is at least with the goal that how much money you want to raise. You want to try to do something that is realistic in terms of what you can achieve, and also something that you can actually break down and figure out where's the money going to. Is there opportunity for stretch goals? What's the plan A? And also just researching kind of like what each platform brings to the table. Like with Indiegogo, you don't necessarily have to make your goal. You can still get the money you fundraise, but Kickstarter, it's all or nothing. And so if you don't get it, no one who donated is charged, and you don't get anything. And so I think like realizing which one might better suit your project. Like if you need just, as much money as you can, and like you're not quite worried about if you hit your goal or not, definitely wanting to go the Indiegogo route. But if you are confident in your project that, all right, I can hit this number, you might want to go to the Kickstarter route, because I think Kickstarter has a bit more, they're kind of what people think of first, I think, when you think of crowdfunding. Also, too, just realizing that it's a numbers game. And so you want to figure out how many people, backers, you actually need to get your project funded. Typically, it's going to be somewhere between 100 and like 150, maybe 200, depending on your reward tiers. And that leads into the next thing, is also the reward tiers. I think that's also a really, oftentimes people kind of get tripped up on, what rewards do I offer? Do I want to ship stuff? Do I not want to ship stuff? And so my advice is, kind of have the physical items be of the more higher reward tier, and try to keep everything maybe under like $100, a digital thing, whether it be they get to see like behind the scenes stuff, early access to the short or whatever the project is, and whether it be like a thank you in the credits or a digital producer credit, trying to just incentivize people to really feel like, again, it's as much their project as it is yours. And that's kind of what crowdfunding is great for, is, you can't really make it unless you get the crowd. And so it's also great in that, with the numbers game and with having successful campaigns, it also kind of allows you to build that audience for your project before you've even really started or even started marketing or promoting it. And so you're able to say, like, this is how many people are interested in Batu, or this is how many people are interested in the indies, just off of like seeing the rough kind of pitch Bible and feeling like they want to see this project exist in the space. And so, I would always just say, like, make sure that you're choosing the right platform, figure out kind of what those reward tiers are going to be, and, just make sure that your project is as clearly communicated as it can be. So like anybody, a stranger who reads it, who might not know who I am, but they see, just the artwork and the project, they feel compelled to donate.
What is the behind the scenes of how you've had the wherewithal to enter your films into festivals? Like, I know one thing that I wouldn't know before talking to people who have been in festivals is that I don't think you can publish it publicly before, like, when you're on the film festival run or whatever it's called. But what is the behind the scenes of getting your films or your projects into film festivals?
Yeah, I did a lot of that's another thing I did in college. A lot of was kind of on the side. I'd make my own little shorts and then enter them into whatever student film festivals were out there, or animation festivals. And yeah, it's exactly that, where typically I would just make films specifically for film festivals, because it was like you couldn't put it out and also enter it into a festival. A lot of times festivals want to be like world premiere, or like, the first time it's being shown in that city. From what I have heard in the last couple of years, that's beginning to change more and more, just because there's so many different ways to, I guess, build buzz and build press for shorts. And I mean, you'll even sometimes like see it where, something will be out on YouTube kind of by a big brand, and then it might get taken down for a little bit, and then it'll be back. And so there's kind of different ways and, I guess, loopholes, because, their film festivals are starting to adapt time and industry change. And so the behind the scenes stuff, though, the best resource I can always recommend is Film Freeway, which is the perfect way to like submit your movie to film festivals, because just the way they're able to find different categories and what festivals are where and which ones have like a $0 entry fee. That's always what I did, was I would literally just say, all right, what festival does this maybe apply for? And then just submit my movie like everywhere to see, what rights, and being strategic with the ones that, cost money or have a submission fee. And so, just kind of looking into that type of stuff, but also, then researching what might gotten in the year before, a couple years before, and just kind of seeing if your movie's a good fit there. But it's great in that it's a cool exercise to kind of just get reps in of having that experience of a movie that you made playing in a theater with strangers, and then getting to see their reactions and seeing if things are hitting, seeing like where you can improve storytelling, like if some jokes are landing or if some aren't. I think that's the most like invaluable kind of behind the scenes stuff you get from a film kind of festival as a filmmaker, is you're able to actually go and say, all right, cool, this worked, this doesn't work. So when I go around for the next project, I know I need to kind of improve here, or just watch these things a little bit more. It's a great way to develop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you're talking, I'm thinking about like all the comedians that I follow and watch on YouTube or Instagram and stuff like that. And something that they've said in this quarantine is that it's hard to tell jokes when you don't have that feedback.
Yes.
So, as artists, sometimes we're creating stuff for ourselves or maybe for a small group of people, but what is the positivity of that feedback to help you grow or to help you, whatever you have to offer as a suggestion, but like that feedback of seeing people's reactions, how does that help you?
Yeah, I think it's just, when you create a project or when you write something, you're trying to manipulate an audience, right? Like that's, at the end of the day, that's what storytellers are doing, is they're trying to get people to feel joy, then sadness, then joy again, more often than not. And so the best thing, getting kind of that live reaction, is if you're trying to make something that's funny and heartfelt, kind of just being able to kind of peek over your shoulder, or, be sitting somewhere to where you can just kind of see people's reactions and see if, people are laughing, or if they're hitting those kind of beats that you want them to be reacting to. And then also too, just being able to, after the film festival, more often than not, just talk to people. A lot of film festivals do Q&As afterwards too. So if you're actually able to attend, which I always also recommend doing, try to also submit to festivals that you can actually go to, because then you're able to get Q&As, hear questions from the audiences, but also I think just being in that space, connecting with other filmmakers, it just kind of helps advance your career and how you are as a storyteller, and just kind of, again, remembering like, all right, so if this joke doesn't hit, that means maybe I needed to work on this joke a bit more, or, this subject matter didn't really resonate or come across like how I did. I'm sure like with everyone, whenever you watch your work, you always see the what you could have done or what was there. Like it's hard for you to actually sit and watch it. So whenever you can get a fresh pair of eyes on it, I think it helps you kind of see things a bit more clearly as well.
And it's so interesting, like just as you produce more, you somehow naturally get better, because last year was the first year that I consistently posted a YouTube video every week, and to go back and look at my videos from like earlier in the year, I'm like, ugh. And then I'm like, how did I get better? I didn't actively try to do these things. I don't know if it was innate, but I'm just like, whoa, why was I like looking at the paper?
No, I think you get more comfortable, and you definitely see it with like podcasts. Like you see a lot of like people's early podcasts, and they're almost night and day compared to when they're 100 in or 50 in, and it's like, I think it's about reps and putting points on the board. And so whenever you're able to kind of do that whole process, the more you're able to do it, the more just natural you'll get at that. You'll learn to trust your instincts a bit more, and you'll just kind of figure out your own style and way you like to go about doing things.
Yeah. What is the importance of incorporating your culture into your projects, whatever kind of culture you think that is?
So I think for me, my like niche is like Midwest, because it was Cleveland and Chicago for first like 22 years. Yes. There it is, Great Lakes. The Great Lakes. and you know, kind of, it wasn't until I moved to LA that I realized, yo, so many shows take place in LA. Like they're so LA, Hollywood, Central or West Coast, or, you know, East Coast, or, you know, sometimes South. But like the Midwest is such a, it feels so untapped in terms of like the stories and the uniqueness, that it is kind of growing up being in, you know, those urban cities that are then surrounded, you know, the states are more rural, you know, once you get out of those urban metropolitan areas. And so, you know, the older I got and the more I kind of saw that, oh, I really haven't seen something that really like speaks to like my experience growing up in the Midwest. And so trying to create stories and characters and visuals that kind of inhibit that lifestyle a bit, and what I remember growing up, about being a kid, and even when I go back home to visit, really just wanting to incorporate those elements, such as like corner stores, or you know, just kind of whatever it was growing up at the time, and just trying to put as much of that stuff in there as possible, because you know, I know there's several other people from the Midwest who probably might not even realize that they feel the same way. But, you know, I think you see it with shows. There's a lot of Chicago-based shows right now, and I think like that's beautiful. And so, you know, just the more we can kind of expand that Midwest viewpoint, especially in animation, I think you're just going to get more unique and more genuine stories that haven't been seen before, and that'll excite people.
Do we by any chance have the kindred childhood thing of Cedar Point?
Yes. Oh,
Cedar
man.
Point.
I really
Like,
wanted to
what
go
is
back
Six
this
Flags?
year.
Cedar Point was my childhood.
Yes, no, literally. I wanted to go back so badly last summer, and I was just like, oh, next summer. And then, you know, now it's like, when will I ever get to go back to Cedar Point? They should have done it back then.
Right. Yeah, and it's just so interesting because I've lived in, you know, I guess I've lived in almost every part of the country, you know, from being from the Midwest, going to school in upstate New York. So having that East Coast experience, and then living in the South, and then now moving to California, it just, you know, the Midwest does have its distinct attributes. And I remember there's a comedian slash, you know, singer that I follow, and he's from Detroit, and he was just doing an Instagram live, and I was just like, I don't know how I can tell, but I know that the house behind you is in Detroit, like, because there's this
Right.
distinctive like architecture, and you know, when you go in the Midwest, it's so industrial in the
Yes.
city, and so it's just like bringing that familiarity to our people, the Midwest people.
Yeah, and you know, at least for me, I can always kind of like suss one out. Like if I'm like in like East Coast, especially whenever I'm in LA, or you know, you'll talk to someone and you'll be like, I feel like we would have been cool in high school, or we would have like hated one another. You know, you just like you get that vibe from people, and it's like just how people speak. But yeah, that it's such a great kind of unique place, because I think it's a combination of, you know, West, East, and South. It all kind of funnels upwards to that Northeast kind of region.
Yeah, and even like living in the South, where, you know, that's the home of Southern hospitality. I don't know if it just was my personal experience, but I'm like, I don't feel like these people are any more nicer than Midwest people.
Right. It's there's like my favorite thing is like in the Midwest, like when you bump into someone, people always go like, oop. It's like OPE, like that like weird sound that we make whenever we like there's like a faux pas, or we like do something. It's just like it's like the language and the culture and like all that stuff.
Yeah. What do you hope for the future of animation, as far as, you know, innovation, storylines, characters? You know, a big one in 2D was like Klaus, and I'm not sure if you have any other examples of, you know, I think I haven't. Don't tell anybody, but I haven't seen Peanuts yet. But I feel like that was another monumental of, you know, having a comic book on screen. But what do you hope for, again, the future of innovation, storylines, characters?
Yeah, I think you know, the thing that's really inspiring to me is now with social media, again, you kind of have these resources and communities where, there are artists who are 12, 13, like really being able to like get a firsthand look at how stuff's being made and those tutorials, and being able to produce really awesome stuff at such a early age. You see it, there's always like a kid going viral on the internet for doing some really great special effects or animation or a dance, and really just having that exposure to the industry. And I think the industry is also kind of starting to look there a bit more too. And so that's really exciting, because I think that's going to bring a new energy and a new kind of way of looking at things, that when you combine with the industry vets and the people who have more reps kind of under them, you're probably going to get this really great renaissance, I think, probably this decade of, just unheard stories, new stories. People are going to get hopefully a bit more risky with the stories, and not necessarily meaning like more adult, but just seeing stuff that you might not have seen 10, 5, 20 years ago on screen. And from like a technological standpoint, yeah, you bring up Klaus, Spider-Verse, Captain Underpants, and like Peanuts. Those are movies that like, are exciting visually, CGI or 2D. I think the two have started to kind of intertwine and work with one another in a really interesting way. Again, I'm a big Disney fan, so I always wish that they would have kept going like in the Treasure Planet direction of like integrating 2D and 3D to where it's almost like you can't tell what's what. And that's kind of what Klaus was really amazing at doing too, was, you couldn't tell what, like, is this prop 3D? Is it 2D? Like, is this character, the lighting, the shading? I think it just makes the visuals more innovating. And again, it strikes out to people. So, people don't even necessarily have to know what the movie's about, but they see a still from it and they're like, I want to see it because that looks dope. Like, I've never seen something like that before.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the 12 and 13-year-olds. When I was in high school, I think I was a senior in high school, and I participated in the NAACP ACT-SO program, ACT-SO, and I did a motion graphics piece, and I was like the only person in Michigan to do it, so I like got to go to the nationals in Philly, and I lost to a 10-year-old who was doing like 2D animation, and I wasn't even mad. I was like, how the heck does he know how to do that?
Right. No, it's crazy, because even, me coming out of college, like, and applying for, studio jobs, and then being like, oh, I lost this position to like an 18-year-old who's like just an insanely talented artist. And I'm like, you're not even mad, because you're just like, this is fantastic. Like, that, for me, it's more inspiring and like encouraging of the future that, the art form is going to be in good hands, and it's going to keep evolving. And so it's basically like, I want to figure out how, my place in it, and how I can continue to also try to innovate and bring whatever it is my unique voice to projects is.
What do you hope for the future of diversity in animation?
The diversity, I think, like, for me, it goes with also getting more characters on screen that look like me and you, but also people behind the scenes, and not just artists, but like casting directors, the cast, writers, producers, showrunners. I feel like I'm sure you could count the like amount of Black TV animated showrunners on one hand. It's so, I think that's where we can see the most room for growth there, because I think that goes back to bringing more authentic stories to the screen, and to just kind of building up that community of, Black storytellers and people in the industry who might not be able to draw, but necessarily love, but they still love animation, and they still want to work in that field and in that industry. Very excited for, a show like Young Love, which I think is like, man, probably since the Proud Family, right, where it's like a Black animated TV show by a Black creator. You
give a little background about that for the people who don't know yet.
so Young Love, if you haven't heard yet, the 2020 Oscar winner for Best Animated Short, Hair Love, was recently picked up by HBO Max to produce a 12 episode first season of a show called Young Love, which is going to continue, the adventures of Zuri and her family. And, it's going to be an authentic, I think, look at the modern Black American family that we haven't really seen in animation, because maybe outside of Craig of the Creek, there really isn't that kind of TV representation. And so, I think that's really exciting, because hopefully that just shows people that, there are, Hair Love was a very untraditional process, right? It was kickstarted and then short and then Oscar and now TV show. So it's had an amazing, fantastic run and batting average, where every time it comes up to a big test, it passes with flying colors. And so I think, again, that just speaks to the authentic, kind of diversity of animation, in that just because it's Black people, you look at Hair Love, for example, like every parent, whether you're Black, white, Asian, no matter what you are, you can relate to, wanting to try to do something for your kid and you failing. Like, I think that's a universal, relatable theme. And whether it be teaching your kid how to do their hair or ride a bike, like, there are all these different universal themes. And I think the more we can see that, Black people can be in those roles too, without turning into animals halfway through, then, I think that's just going to keep proving to people behind the scenes and people who are in higher up positions, greenlighting shows that, we can take more risks with Black stories and with Black storytellers.
So, being Black in America is kind of crazy to think about our hair being, political or anything. And you do have your pandemic haircut, but do you? But to anybody who has seen our YouTube lives, have you put much? I don't know how much guys have to think about this, but have you put much thought into the decision to wear your hair, your illustrious curls, your curly froed out, like what some people would call unruly? Like, have you put much thought into your decision to actually wear your hair like that, or is it just natural?
No, it's pretty much natural. I think, at least, in my experience, I see Black filmmakers and musicians and artists kind of wear their hair in a variety of ways. And, it's almost like they're living in their truth, kind of unapologetically being them and wanting to do what they want to do. And so, with my hair, for example, I was like, I'm not going to get a haircut until Batu's done. But I caved in. So I wanted to get a haircut. But I mean, I had grown my hair out for 2 years straight. And so that was the craziest kind of hair journey that I had gone on. But I never kind of let it, I never thought of it as being ruly. I mean, I wanted to obviously always have it kind of done and moisturized and not, looking crazy. But, I think it's more so about, that's just what I wanted to do at the time. And I didn't want to have my decisions influenced by kind of the ideas of what other people think I should be or I should look like, because that's not, I'm gonna be me at the end of the day.
Yeah. So what are your ultimate goals as you continue your animation career? Like you were talking earlier about finding your place in, the animation industry as we continue to build like this Black animation industry. Whether it's personally for you, what is your goals for the future, or even influencing others? Like, what is that?
Yeah, I would love to be directing animated TV shows and features, whether that be for other studios or through CBA. I definitely want to continue to just kind of fight for getting more Black artists behind the scenes, because I think that's where you're really going to see real change. I mean, we see Black characters on screen, but sometimes they're not even created by Black people. And so, I think that's an issue where it's really important to me to try to create projects and try to create visuals that kind of showcase that Black people are capable of doing great, like high quality studio work. And so that's one of the things too with CBA is now we're just trying to lay that foundation. But we work with several Black artists from all around the world on a variety of different projects. And so I think it's just kind of about having that long-term kind of planning and just trying to build that foundation. I started the studio in January 2019, so we're a year and a half in, and we're doing really well. We were able to actually hire some interns this summer, so it's our first time with interns, and they're great. It's 3 Black women and 1 Black dude from who are all kind of in different stages. Some are in college, some have just graduated. And so really just trying to teach them that pipeline of, hey, this is kind of what it looks like to be working on a team, collaborating with a bunch of different artists, and really just trying to, give back to the community and really just try to take the knowledge that, I gain on my journey and share it with others. And, we have conversations like this, me and you, and we're able to just kind of talk and grow about the industry and voice our concerns and trying to, build a better future. And you see that with other Black animation groups and organizations as well. That's kind of where the spotlight is right now, is people are actually kind of starting to listen and hopefully have those uncomfortable conversations about kind of what needs to change behind camera and with, toxic work environments and kind of all that stuff. I think too, it's great to also look at, the idea that with CBA, we're entirely remote studio. And so kind of looking at the advantages that gives us, also the disadvantages, but I try to look at those disadvantages as opportunities to grow and learn. And so disadvantage obviously being you're not able to be in the room with people. And so, trying to then figure out, all right, well, that means that I need to find people whose communication is like pretty on point, and that, you're able to really trust and work with and grow with. And so that extends past the more transactional, you're a hired gun basically, to more of like, hey, you're a part of this now too, and you're going to help grow this as well. Even if you don't, stay working with me and, you go off and do bigger and better things, it's like you are still a part of that process and of that growth to, have more Black-owned studios, to have more Black people making cartoons behind scenes, and also just getting more representation on screen.
Do you have any Black 2D animators that people should check out or follow?
Yes, I definitely do. There's Malik Bolton, who's a great animator. He worked with me on a lot of projects. He's working on Bat 2. He's working on CBA's doing a project. It's coming out soon. I probably can't say much about right now. But he's also helped out with we did videos for Denzel Curry and Kenny Beats earlier this year. He's really solid. There's also an animator by the name of Christos Perry. He goes by Stos. He's also just a really kind of talented animator who his movements really kind of evoke kind of Black movements, which is really, really impressive. It's really hard to kind of get some of our characteristics down sometimes, and he's like kind of a marksman at doing that. And then, I mean, there's so many, God, like Rachel Headlam, she's incredible. I've worked with her on a lot of projects as well. And I mean, gosh, there's so many. Noah Cutright. I would say, like, if you basically go to like my website and then go to my freelance page, basically all those projects we have are credits, and I try to credit always, everyone who we work with, because they're all super talented artists in their own right, and also kind of have that multifaceted skill set to where they're able to also do designs. animation. Joshua Roberts is another dope character designer who designs all the characters for Steve Harvey stories. And just, like there's so many great talented artists that are out there, and it's just like I try to hire as many of them as possible.
Yeah, I'll try to get you links from you for the people you mentioned, so I can put it in the description.
Yeah.
And so, wrapping it up, do you have any? You mentioned a couple, but do you have any upcoming projects that you can mention, or maybe projects in the past that maybe people can look?
Yeah, I would always say check out the John Legend Legendary Love Letters series that we did. It was a Valentine's Day Facebook exclusive. It was really great to work with John and his team on that project. Steve Harvey's Story Season 1 is out on Steve Harvey's YouTube channel and on his social media handles. We're currently working on Season 2, which is very exciting. Again, that second series order, and that'll be coming out very soon as well. We're really we've been able to expand the team on that one and hopefully really up the quality for the second season. And then, finally, I really also want to plug Batu again. That's an amazing project with a great cast, a great crew, and that's coming out really soon. If you go to any of my social media handles, you'll see me. I'm always tweeting about it or trying to give updates, kind of on the progress of that. It's been a beast of a project. It's very ambitious, but the finished work that you've seen, Deborah, since you're also on the team. I'm very happy with how it's coming along, and it's a lot, but I think it's going to be really exciting when it comes out.
And how can people follow you on the different social media platforms and your website?
Yeah, so my website is www.chazbottoms.com, and you can find me on Twitter at ChazzyMcFly. You can also follow Batu on Twitter as well at Batu Movie. And then I can be found on Instagram, Chaz Draws. So it's just what I do. So ChazDraws. And I mean, those are the handles. And you can also just kind of Google my name. It's a very unique name, I guess. And so, a lot of my stuff will come up.
Cool. Thank you, Chaz, for coming to speak to the people. And for everyone out there, I want you to like So I Know It's Real, comment and tell me how you feel, subscribe to Seal the Deal, and sign up for post notifications to show your zeal. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
Peace.